Hello everyone, Nate Lansing here. Welcome to my very first episode of Tuesday Tips. Every Tuesday I plan to do a video answering some frequently asked questions that I get all the time. So in this week's episode of Tuesday Tips, we will be going over what is earnest money. First of all, it's not this earnest. It's earnest money. What earnest money is a deposit that a buyer makes to a seller's broker, typically, that shows how serious they are in purchasing the home. This deposit protects the seller in the event that the buyer decides to back out down the line. So how much is a typical earnest money payment by a buyer? Typically, earnest money is somewhere between 1% and 2% of the purchase price. The higher that the buyer submits in earnest money can tell the seller how serious they are in purchasing the house. The more skin in the game, as they say, the more serious a buyer might be. In what instances does a buyer lose their earnest money? So a buyer can lose their earnest money to the seller if they decide to back out of the purchase agreement after all of the contingencies have been satisfied. So what's an example of a contingency? That would be like the inspection contingency, the financing contingency. There could be appraisal contingencies as well. So if all those have been satisfied between the buyer and seller, and you get past all those contingencies, and then the buyer decides to walk away for whatever reason, then that buyer's earnest money would be in jeopardy of being lost to the seller. So what happens to the earnest money if you get to closing and everything goes fine? So typically the buyer's earnest money will then get applied directly to their down payment. So you put down a $5,000 earnest money deposit on a house. When you get to closing, that money will be automatically added to your down payment. So, that's not another $5,000 that you have to bring. So that is what happens with your earnest money at closing. So that's a quick rundown for you of what earnest money is, how much it typically is, when a buyer might lose it to a seller, and what happens as to the earnest money when you get to closing. If you have any questions about earnest money or how that applies in buying or selling a home, I'd be happy to help out in any way I can, and just reach out to me. Otherwise, keep watching this space. For every Tuesday, I plan to do out a frequently asked question about real estate. If you have any questions, please send them in and I'd be happy to do a video about it. So I hope everyone has a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday.